Sound okay? Sounds okay? Okay. Keep it here. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Donna Dingle, and I'm from Disability Services. This will be kind of short because you don't need a lot of the stuff the faculty needed. Okay, first thing is students with disabilities are protected under these two laws. So by law, we need to accommodate them so they have access to every aspect of university life, academic as well as social, okay? The emphasis is on access, not success. K-12 students are used to being accommodated to success. So they would get whatever accommodations they needed to pass their classes to be successful. College, the laws are different, it's just access. Okay. Our office does a lot. I've probably spoken to most of you through either emails or phone calls, but we probably haven't met face-to-face a lot. But we work a lot with almost every office that's in here. Our office meets with every student with a disability to review paperwork, discuss accommodations that are appropriate. We have mentors, professional mentors, adult mentors, who meet with students once a week individually to help them with transition, organization, time management. Really, we're trying to teach them how to be a college student, to make that transition from high school where they're in smaller classes, some of them have aides, to an independent college student. My assistant teaches courses in using technology. We have a lot of adaptive and assistive technology our students use. So we train students in that. We have a small lending library that we use. We offer an adaptive testing room. We have one in the library and one in Downs Hall. That's for students who can't take tests with the class with too many students, with too much distraction. So we have a different area where we proctor exams. The adaptive testing room is really more for the professors. It's to assist professors in making sure students get the accommodations that they need. We do training on various groups on campus, student groups as well as certain adult groups. I also go to a lot of high school, college transition fairs, some special ed type schools, things like that. And we work with offices all over campus to so everyone has access. The students have the rights to equal access to all classroom materials as well as all academic buildings, social events, things like that. They have a right to accommodations to provide reasonable access, and they have the rights to have information in adaptive forms. For example, the website. If a student who's blind obviously is not going to be able to read, so the website has to be accessible to JAWS. JAWS is a program they use to read things. Our website is accessible to JAWS, by the way. So some students may need large print if they're, visually impaired. So alternative formats like that. Reasonable accommodations lessen the effect of the disability. They're creating an even playing field. They're not designed to provide advantages, just to provide an even playing field for those students. For example, if the student needs a test adapted, that may mean that they need it printed in 36 font, or they may need it uploaded into a computer so the text reading software can read it out loud to them. Or a student may need, we have some students who just can't use Scantrons. So their accommodation, their test alternative is to actually write on the test. Okay, so things like that. We don't change the test from an essay questions to multiple choice questions. We don't lessen the amount of questions. Those are all K-12 accommodations. They take the same test, it's just the actual physical format may be a little different. Reasonable accommodations do not change or excuse students from meeting the standards of the course room or the university. It does not change the core elements of a course. It does not provide an undue advantage, and this is really more for the faculty, it doesn't allow students to decide when they take tests. They still take tests the same time as the class if they test in our rooms. Okay, occasionally we do deny a requested accommodation if it's going to reduce academic standards, if it's going to alter the fundamental nature of your course or your degree program, if they're unreasonably expensive or impossible to administer, and that one is very, very rarely used. That would be an example of a student who came to me and said, I want to live on the 3rd floor of, what's that? Whiteman Hall, thank you. 3rd floor of the dorm, in the residence hall. So build me an elevator. No, that's not reasonable, right? We would move them. But if the physics lab is on the 3rd floor, we will be getting them up there, right? So it's 2 different things. And we don't give accommodations just to give students unfair advantages or because they want it. It's all determined individually by their documentation. The documentation which tells me how the disability affects them. Some accommodations that involve your offices are, we may have to move students' classrooms. Some students are not going to be able to get from one building to another. They have mobility issues. We have some students who need specific buildings or different classrooms. Occasionally, the classroom itself is not accommodating, so we may have to change that. We have students who need who need tables, and they don't fit into the desk or they can't use the desk, so we have tables. So Facilities is wonderful in placing our tables. And please, anyone, anywhere, sees a table in a classroom, please leave it, because every year we get phone calls from students saying, there's no table again, there's no table. And poor Tracy and her people go from classroom to classroom hunting for the missing tables. So the tables have big signs, you can't miss it, but they have to stay there. We give early registration to our students not as an accommodation, but as a courtesy. Okay, actually, that's a cane policy. The reason why I need their early registration is that every semester I write a letter of accommodation for each student. So I need their schedules so I can see what kind of accommodations are going to be necessary. So they get early registration as a courtesy, and then I get their schedules early. That'll give me time to prepare. Sometimes we have to have special software installed. For example, one of the students was in a lab, a computer lab. He needed JAWS put onto the computer, so we had to work with CIS to get the software. There's magnifying software on other computers for students who are visually impaired. And this thing over here, this is my new toy. It's called an eBot. It's a very expensive piece of equipment that was donated to us by the Ed Lucas Foundation for the Blind. He has he donated money so that we could get equipment because of the 4 blind students we have this year. And this piece of equipment is used for students who are legally blind, visually impaired, in math classes especially. It sits on the desk, and that little arm is a robot. It gets up and it turns around so they can see what the teacher writes on the board, they can see other students in the class, and they view it on their iPad. So it's enlarged right on their iPad. So our staff will go to a classroom, set it up. It comes in a little suitcase. When class is over, we go back, we take it down. And one girl who used it this semester in math, she almost cried with joy that she actually had it, because imagine trying to learn math when you can't see the board. So it's a great piece of equipment. Also, we use housing or meal plan accommodations. We may have to make adjustments for that. Okay, the accommodations themselves are legal documents, so nobody can just randomly decide not to follow them. You can't use them, you can't, professors are not allowed to take some of the accommodations off. If there's issues, they can consult me, but they are documents, so we all have to follow them. Disability never excuses inappropriate behavior, okay? Students with disabilities must get into the college, same level as everyone else, and must meet the same standards for academics as well as behavior. All right, so I'm kind of encouraging, and I met with all the faculty this morning, for people to start reporting things in writing. Normally what happens is a student causes this commotion in an office, in a classroom, and I get a phone call, which is great, but I'm not the Code of Conduct Office or Behavioral Intervention Team. So we're asking that people report very inappropriate behavior. The Cubit, if you were here yesterday, they did a little presentation. The Cubit team said that they would like you to refer students to them, not for punishment, but if a student's behavior is concerning, they will investigate, they will check with the other teachers, and then get help. Maybe the student needs to be referred to my office. Maybe the student needs to be referred to counseling or something. But the other thing is behavior escalates, and when it's not documented at an early stage, we're running into issues further on. You know, students here now 2 or 3 years doing the same things for 2 or 3 years, but it's starting to escalate, and now we don't have any documentation of a long-term problem. So I'm asking anybody who does have students who are aggressive or inappropriate, not to just blow it off and not just to call me, but to follow up. How many of you have seen the guide dog, the seeing eye dog? He's adorable, isn't he? Beautiful yellow lab. The problem is he's a beautiful yellow lab. So we have for the first time this seeing eye dog and this student, and it's a young dog. And any of you familiar with labs know that they want to play. So for 2 years they've trained this dog not to want to play, to want to work. And then he moved onto a college campus and kids are driving him crazy. They're petting him, they're playing with him, they're talking to him. And I shouldn't just say kids because it's not just students. We're having problems with some faculty too. The problem is when you distract a seeing eye dog, the student's life is in jeopardy. All right, I was standing there as he walked into a pole because the dog was like this, looking at the girl that had just grabbed him. The student doesn't see other people coming up to him because he's blind. So they come up from the side and so he doesn't know until the dog just stops walking. The problem is you can break a seeing eye dog. Breaking a seeing eye dog means the dog has decided it's more fun to be a dog than a tool, than a worker, and he will stop leading. At that point, we have a very upset student. We have $60,000 and 2 years of training down the drain, and we have a dog that's now a pet. All right, so please, I'm asking the entire campus community to work together to leave the dogs alone. If you see people going to touch the dog, to play with the dog, say something. You know, it takes a village to raise a child. My theory is it takes a whole campus community to deal with students with disabilities because there are 400 students registered in my office now. When I got here 5 years ago, there were under 60. So that's a lot of students. And let me tell you, the dog comes to my office and it gives me that cute little tilt, like pet me, and I have to turn my head. I won't even look at it. Don't even look at it. It's a problem. This is what the dog looks like. I ordered this do not pet sign, which will sit right here on the leash. So now it faces people because the other signs are on the actual harness and people may not see it. So it's nice. I mean, everybody understands what a stop sign is, right? So I'm hoping it gets better. And I'm also, as I present to student groups, I'm kind of charging them with talk to your peers. We need not, let's respect the student and his dog. And next semester, or next week, I should say, we have service dog number 2. Service dog number 2 is not as cute. All right, some people think he is. I don't anticipate as many people trying to pet this dog. However, you should have heard some of the teachers. They were asking if they could pet dogs. This Rottweiler is not a seeing eye dog, but it is a service dog who should not ever be distracted. Because he's a little scarier looking, hopefully people will stay away and give him space. But I'm also letting people know because I know that there are some dog-phobic people on campus, okay? And so as a result, I've told every professor who will have this student and this dog, because if push comes to shove, if I'm afraid of a dog and a dog walks into my classroom, the dog's not the one who leaves. I'm the one who leaves. So I'm letting professors know in advance, so if there is an issue, we can make arrangements before the semester begins. We may run into some issues of students who are really deathly afraid. And so I may, registrar's office may be getting a call from me about trying to change someone's class on an emergency basis because we have a petrified student and a dog. So just to let you know in advance. So there will be 2. This one is very vested. You'll see the vest. And the girl is very good about protecting her dog from other people and other animals. So just so you'll be aware. But I did want everyone to notice. Yes?
I have a question. In athletics, we don't allow pets into our games.
Right.
We've seen more and more therapy dogs from spectators.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some sort of ID that we should know when it's really a working dog or it's really, I didn't want to leave my dog at home?
There are a lot of fake service dogs. And the fact that they call them therapy dogs, emotional support animals, the dog makes me feel good because I'm anxious, they're not service dogs. These 2 are service dogs. Service dogs can go anywhere, bearing hospitals and certain labs. I don't know what to, I mean, you can say, is this a service, this a service dog necessary for your disability? And they're going to say yes. And then you can ask what it was trained to do. If it's not trained to do anything, it's not a service dog. But there are, you can't, the ID cards and the vests you can get for $125 online now. There are a lot of fake, well, they're not fake, they're psychologists who have licenses in one state but who practice internet and send these fake licenses. We are lucky in that it's not a big issue here, but I heard from faculty this morning that dogs were showing up in classrooms. It was news to me. As far as I know, we only had the guide dog. Now we'll have two. Okay, luckily for me, it makes my job easier. This is a very accessible campus, thanks to most of you, all right? Buildings are easily entered. Almost all the buildings have elevators, electric eyes. Most of the doors have either eyes or push buttons. There are some issues in certain buildings in certain places, so that gets taken care of as I know about it. Elevators are important, and occasionally they do break down. I'm going to ask that if you are in a building or in an area where you know an elevator is broken, that you report it. Because I find out about it after a student missed his class, and I don't know if it's been reported or not. But we need to get these elevators fixed pretty quickly. Students who use chairs or who have mobility issues can't walk up and down the stairs, so if the elevator is broken more than a short time, they're going to miss class. So we really are going to have to move their class. We can't deny them their classes. And no, we can't carry them up the stairs. I only put that because, you know, we hire note takers to help some of our students, and when the elevator broke once, the note taker thought it was his job to carry the student up the 3 flights of stairs as well. Yeah, the student said no, and we had to have a conversation with the student. He was very kind in his thought, but we don't want people lifting other people. So again, if we have to move a class, if you're teaching a class and you know somebody in your class needs that elevator and the elevator's broken, don't wait until they miss 2 or 3 classes. Let's figure out how we're going to fix this sooner. Okay, so this is my thank you part. As I said before, I work with a lot of different people. It's really funny because I've been here 5 years now, so I'm not really new, but it's really surprising as you all filtered in how many people I actually know. It was really interesting for me to see. So I want to thank Facilities for getting the tables in every time they go missing, finding them and putting them back again. The registrar's office who moves classes for accessibility, or when we run into a problem with the course, who will quickly be able to move a class from one room to another. Resident services helps us with housing accommodations, and student accounting helps us with meal plan accommodations, both of which we also do through our office. We do not just give every student who asks a single. We do not let every student who's off the meal plan off the meal plan. Gourmet Dining has a dietitian who works with all of our students who have concerns of dietary needs, and then we make adjustments to the meal plan as necessary. So it's really a wide, you see, it's all over campus, the people who are helping to accommodate everyone. Okay, the buses and the trolleys. I've been told all buses and trolleys have lifts, okay? So if a lift does not work, we need to get it repaired as soon as possible. A couple of times I get phone calls from students telling me that they're missing their class because the bus left without them. So I'm asking that anybody who's on a trolley or near a trolley, if it's broken, let's get it fixed. And I do have phone numbers now of people to report it myself. But it's not fair that students miss class because our lifts are broken or the bus driver is busy and doesn't want to lift. You know, I don't know the real reasons. Also, the other thing, and I know that the trolley drivers probably aren't here, but maybe their supervisors are, remind them that the blind students who take the buses, the trolleys, need to be told that they can come in. It's not this exact sign, but Facilities has been working, Facilities has been working with us, now I'm stuck, there it is, to put signage in the front seat. You know, if you go on like Amtrak and stuff, the first seat in the train is reserved for, it's handicapped seating. So that's going to be put onto these buses. And the students don't know the stops. They really need the stops announced. And I discovered recently, I was in a meeting with a student, it's not just the blind students who need it. The first couple weeks, new students don't know what the bus stops are either. And one student stayed right past the STEM building and got hysterical that she missed it because no one told her that was the STEM building. So it's a lot of the things we do can be useful to many students, not just one student. Okay, you see this? What's that? You think it's a trick question, but I'm surprised at the amount of people who really don't know white cane is used by students who are visually impaired or blind. Okay, so you'll see we do have a couple students who use canes on campus. One of them is a wide swinger, so you're going to want to move when she's in your direction. I've been hit by it. They need it because remember, they're navigating by memory. Okay, so they spent the summer here getting what they call mobility training to learn how to get from classroom to classroom to classroom. Another reason early registration is helpful, so they know where their classrooms are going to be. And it's all by memory. The white cane also, for people who drive through campus, be aware that they're not going to see you. So you want to be especially careful if you're driving near the streets with somebody with the white cane. These students are not, I was walking with one and I was thinking, wow, this is really, she's right-handed, so the cane was in her right hand and she was walking more towards the left. And everybody had to keep moving and I thought, wow, how rude. And then I thought, well, she doesn't see them. Of course, it's not being rude. So we have to accommodate them by getting out of their way. Okay, the construction on campus makes learning really just a little difficult. Now, I'm not complaining about it, I'm just saying. The students this summer, remember the new patio that got put out in front of Myron Student Center? So a lot of it was blocked off. So I was walking with the student who used the dog, and he was going from, what building are you in, Townsend? Okay, from Townsend to the residence hall. And he went and he turned this way and he turned this way, and I was like, where are you going? And then I realized he learned it under construction, so he's still walking as if they're under construction. It makes it interesting. If there's a lot of construction, the student may get confused. If he's going down a road and it's closed, you may find a student who's a little confused. So if you're out there, happen to be there when somebody's walking, you may need to say, oh, this road's closed, let me walk you back to CAS or whatever thing that they know. Okay, this, I don't know if you can tell, but if you're walking from here by CAS, going to Willis, there's a curb that just appears, okay? The snow is kind of making it harder to see. We have a lot of students who are low vision, visually impaired, and they have trouble with depth perception. So curbs like this are going to trip them up, okay? So I've been working with, I know I had a conversation with the facilities department, and you can't do anything because it's all snow and ice, but a stripe, a different, paint, yellow, white, on that curb, students will be able to know that it's there. And this scares me the most, that sunken patio. Because I've seen sighted kids fall on it, because they're just not paying attention. And look, can you really see that it's a big drop? It's tricky, so bright paint around it would be useful for those students with low vision. This is Whiteman. I don't know if Dennis is here, but thank you, Dennis, because Dennis had it striped immediately. One of the students was having a problem when he went to get his packages, and you can just see what a difference this makes with that. The strip of paint makes, and for people who aren't paying attention too. So you see how nice this is. Now imagine if there were stripes on those steps. For students with low vision, students with, visual injuries, it's going to make life simpler. So that's one way we can help make things a little safer on campus. Okay, so a couple reminders. If you have students in your office who are blind, please don't hand them forms to sign and fill out. It's not going to work. You all laugh, but all of my anecdotes have happened this past semester. I don't make anything up. Some parts of the website may not work with JAWS. It's very difficult as a JAWS user to search for courses because you got to keep switching back and forth and this and that. So students may show up in like One Stop or registrar's office asking to do something that students can do by themselves. But I'm going to ask, they may need help with somebody. Normally we ask them to come to our office and we will help register them. But if they're in your office, you might help to, help. It's not that they're lazy, it's that they honestly just can't do it. Those of you who are familiar with the first floor in the library, the behind the little research desk, the research librarian's desk, is a computer that says, this is reserved for Kurzweil users. Kurzweil is a text reading software. A student will scan a book or a handout that he gets in class, and the computer will read it out loud to him. Okay, that's been there for a while. This semester, the beginning of the semester, we installed JAWS onto that same computer. So now the totally blind student can also use that. The difference between a text reader and a screen reader, text reader reads the words. Screen reader reads everything. So as you move the mouse, it says on, off, this button, that button. So it tells you everything on a screen. So that's what the blind students really need. So if there is a student in that area, they might be looking for that JAWS computer. And so, you might be able to, it's right there. It's listed as, it just says Kurzweil, but they can use it. Other areas. We have 2 deaf students that use ASL interpreters right now that I'm aware of. When they know they need to meet with advisors or financial aid or something, if they have appointments, they reach out to me and we schedule an interpreter to go with them. But sometimes they may pop up into your office. Some of them read lips, some of them speak, which may make life a little easier for you. You can always just do, write notes. We do not have full-time interpreters on campus at all times. They're basically outside contractors. So unless we know in advance, you can't call us and we just can't send someone over. It doesn't really work like that. But we do encourage our students to make appointments as soon as possible. We have a lot of students now on the autism spectrum. And it's a spectrum for a reason. They're all very much individuals. But I know that sometimes, I'm thinking especially financial aid and sometimes registrar, if they're blocked, you're dealing with them probably 10 times a day because they're very persistent. And some of them are going to come across as very rude, very angry, confused, anxious. Just kind of don't take it personally because it's not you. They're frustrated and they're angry. My suggestion is you could always call our office. I can always come over and help if somebody is a little out of hand. If they're really aggressive behavior, I would just have them removed from the office. We don't tolerate that. Excuse me. But what would help would be to write the information down. If there's a block because they need to get an immunization, in that state, they're not going to remember. So write it down. They'll take the note home. They can share it with their parents. It will just help them to get through this a lot easier. And then they don't have to come back 6 or 7 more times to ask you the same questions. Confidentiality is very important. I said earlier, there's registered in my office almost 400 students with disabilities. I know there are more on campus who are not registered with me, but it's very important that in having conversations about these students that we're not having discussions about a particular student where others can hear us, okay? You may be aware of certain students' names, but try not to use them. If you're going to have a conversation with the student about his or her disability, do it in your office. Do it away from the rest of the staff or faculty. Be aware of when you're talking about a student in little group settings, because there's always someone who's going to hear. And confidentiality is really important for these students. Any student, but especially our students. Any questions? I told you I'd be fast. Yes?
I have a question. So we have service kiosks for the students if they want to look for registration or if they want to make payment on their bill or such. Is it possible we can have JAWS installed onto the kiosk for those students?
It won't work. I mean, it will be so labor intensive.
Okay.
It would be easier if you did it for them.
Okay.
Yes?
I work at Wilkins, and a number of times I see students and chairs waiting for, and thank you for everything you're doing,
Oh, thank you.
but for New Jersey Transit,
The bus.
and they can wait up to an hour or 2 hours.
Yes, I know.
Is there some place that we can assist them with other than giving them some place warm to wait?
Unfortunately, Access Link is, I don't know how people go to work with it. You have to leave very early, and then they give you a time period for pickup. So I know a lot of our students do end up just waiting, and it seems to be that's, I guess, the main drop-off area right outside. I mean, it's great if you let them stay inside. That's very nice. I know a lot of times one of our students will be waiting, and we'll walk him or her out to see where the bus is parked, or some of our students are using Uber now. It's because it's a little easier for them. Oh, I didn't know that. Wow. Good for you, thank you. My soldier on duty there. Any other questions? It's, yes.
If we notice that there are impediments or cracks in ramps outside or anything that might make like a ramp inaccessible to a student, should we report that through the regular work order?
Work order, I think, right.
Contact you?
I think work order. I mean, people contact me about a lot of things, and I end up doing what you would do, a work order or calling facilities. I don't mind the phone calls. It's just really, I can't, I'm going to have to turn around and do what you've done. Yes?
You have a student in a class that has, obviously, if they've shown you no paperwork from your office, you can't give them an accommodation. What if it's a student that you suspect may have an impairment or a disability, and I know, like, we can't diagnose and we can't force a student to get help for something, but what if you think they really could use some help?
Well, I think I start with the conversation. And usually to get around, you can't just say, so do you have a disability? So it makes it tricky. But I start with, what kind of classes did you take in high school? And if they say resource room, or if they say inclusion rooms, or if they're not sure, I'll say, did you have one teacher or two? Because the classrooms with the two were the special ed classes. And then you can say, did you get special help? Very often, if you ask one of those questions, they will say something that will now open the door for you to have that conversation. You can send them to us. Very often, though, we have students who are classified K to 12, and they come to college and they don't want to carry that label anymore. They're going to do it themselves. So what happens is they struggle through a semester, and then they all show up at my door. Either mom brings them or they show up themselves, and then they register. Other students, there are a lot of faculty who will accommodate, even though they don't have, so a lot of them can get to a certain point and then they hit their ceiling. So when I spoke to the faculty, and if any of you are teaching courses too, we're really asking you not to accommodate students who don't give you an accommodation letter. The important thing in this kind of environment is that we have the same standards for everybody. And if this student with a disability gets these extra accommodations and this one doesn't, we're not really being fair. We want to make sure that we all follow the same rules, because things escalate. And when things escalate, I want to be able to say, this is the policy, we are following this policy. Our website has how to register with us, has all the forms available, has our handbook, so it has any information they need there, as well as our contact information. You can always walk a student over to us. And I've talked to some students, and it turns out maybe they're not really classified, or they don't want to be tested, but we talk about certain study skills that may help them, or some software. This adaptive software, which is incredible for our students, works with every student. So sometimes I introduce them to that kind of thing. Yes?
I was also just to speak on your question also, if you are unsure or if you see behaviors that you're still concerned about, but again, you have questions about it. Donna mentioned this earlier in terms of Qubit, that you may want to do a report to Qubit, and then we can help that student in that fashion also. You'll meet with the student and talk to them. At times, we will reach out to Donna to get some guidance from her, so that might help as well.
Qubit, I'm not sure if everyone knows, KUBIT is the Kane University Behavioral Intervention Team. Okay, so if you're concerned about a student who may be, you had a really good student and now they're spiraling out of control, so you're concerned about their behavior, you write up the report. I go to the kane.edu page, and in the search bar, type in Qubit, and it forms up. It's a form, you fill it out. Maxi's in charge of the committee, but it involves counseling, health services, student conduct, a lot of different people who can then help the students. Any other questions? Again, I do thank you all, because I know I've reached out to so many of you, and usually last-minute emergencies, so I really do appreciate all your help. If you have questions, if you have a concern, please call. I have my number up here. We're in Downs Hall. Just feel free to stop in, send an email, pick up the phone, and give me a call. Thank you very much.